Flirties. On the show today, we welcome Dr. Janine O'Brien. Dr. Janine is a licensed psychologist, educator, and trauma-informed relationship specialist. And through her private practice, teaching, and social media presence, she helps people better understand themselves, their emotional patterns, and how they can create meaningful, securely attached relationships. Dr. Janine, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. And I just want to say that I am such a fan of yours.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I so appreciate the way that you show up in this space and online. So I'm just so happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate the encouragement and very happy to meet with you today and very happy to have you on Flirtations as we have a conversation with the Flirties all about connection versus attachment. We're going to be getting into some of the questions that came through regarding love bombing versus genuine interest. We're going to be talking about some of the anxieties that come up when you start to date someone new, right? And maybe you thought you were past some of those insecurities, some of those self-doubts, and then they present themselves all over again. What is happening? But up first, we got to do the about you section of the interview. And I thought it would be fun to read an excerpt from your website. And
Awesome.
so I'm going to do that now. You say on your website, as humans, we have an innate drive towards connection to others, our world, and ourselves. We have the desire and need to be fully seen, heard, and accepted. At different times in life, we may find that we are disconnected in some way. This may show up as anxiety. You mentioned here people pleasing, perfectionism, overfunctioning, and hyperindependence, mood concerns, relationship concerns, work stress, or physical pains, just to name a few, raising my hand for all of the above here. And simultaneously, when disconnection occurs, either periodically or chronically, it is often difficult for us as humans to reach out for support as it poses a risk to our very sense of connection. So true. We're going to be getting into that more today. Finally, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us.
Absolutely. I know. It hit you.
Oh my gosh. What part do we revisit here? I'd like to know, yes, a little bit more about the inspiration behind your work.
Yeah. I think if it's okay, if I could share a little bit just about me and my
Absolutely.
history. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I was adopted when I was a baby.
Mm,
So right before I was one. And, like a lot of people say that at that time of life, you don't remember it, it's not important.
mm,
But I don't believe that. I believe that, our attachment foundation
mm.
really starts even before birth. So that was the first kind of instance of my having been in the world and having an attachment wound,
Okay.
essentially.
Okay.
And then I grew up in the suburbs of New York.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with my parents and my older sister. And I grew up in a house that wasn't necessarily emotionally available per se. Like my parents were great. I love them, like shout out mom and dad,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't necessarily the type of people that encouraged us talking about emotions. And they, it was sort of even uncomfortable for me to say I love you in that space.
Mm,
And so I spent a lot of my life just feeling really anxious and I didn't have a great sense of myself.
mm-hmm.
And so that really set the foundation for when I went out and started dating. And I started dating when I was in my later teens, and I was really dating from a space of anxiety.
Okay.
I was really trying to fill that void and that space that I didn't get in my home. And so I was very codependent. I
Mm,
was anxious. I was seeking a lot of reassurance. And, through those experiences, I went through my teens and my early 20s, just dating from that space
mm.
and really not knowing, who I was and just putting a lot of my worth into those other people.
Yeah.
And eventually I got burned out on that.
Okay.
And that's at the point when I was in my early to mid 20s. And I eventually met who is now my ex-husband.
Okay.
And in that relationship, he gave me a little bit of space And I took that and ran with it. So I swung all the way to the other side. I
Mm,
became
mm,
super avoidant. I became very hyper independent. I spent many years in that relationship actually living away from
mm.
him. And so we were long distance. And I remember even like people would be talking about their relationships. And I didn't even want to share that I was in a relationship because it
Yeah.
felt like such a I felt so scared to go back to that place
Yeah.
where I was so dependent on the relationship and I was such an anxious spot.
Hmm.
So I clung on to my independence with everything I had.
Yeah.
And eventually that was not a fit as well. And I found the courage to say that that wasn't the right relationship for me.
Hmm.
And we ended up getting divorced. And, the following years, I was single for a period of time, very intentionally trying to learn more about myself. And
Hmm.
now I'm, a few years out from that. I'm in a current partnership.
Hmm.
I by no means am I perfect in this relationship. I am, much more secure
Hmm.
and I have, myself to thank for that and also him and
Yeah.
us, co-creating that space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those relationships just really, laid the foundation. And I will say I swung the other way and then I found kind of like my footing
Yes.
in the attachment space. And I say that to share that your attachment style isn't fixed,
Mm, hmm.
right? Like sometimes people fear that when you have these early experiences that you're now doomed, that you're
Yes.
never going to have, different experience.
Yes.
And I just want to say, both through my experience and through my work with clients and just out in the field, that is absolutely not the case.
Hmm.
Where it's not fixed, you're not doomed. You have the chance to, step into a different experience moving forward for sure.
Mm. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing more about yourself and some of your dating and relationship experience as well. I think you're
Yeah.
speaking to a lot of the experiences the flirties have out there dating. And I know that because they tell me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They tell me they have a lot, yes, a lot of questions that are reflected in your story. And so let's go ahead and jump into some of the questions right now, where I want to go back to where you were initially dating, right, in teens and 20s from this place of anxiety.
Yeah.
And I want to tie that to, of course, attachment theory and attachment styles, but also relating it to the experiences we have in our childhood with our
Uh-huh.
parents, with our caregivers, because I hear sometimes from the flirties that there's not, maybe they have a lot of needs met in their familiar relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps, they're safe, right? They have food on the table, they have shoes on their feet to go to school,
Yeah.
right? They can put gas on their car or have means to get to work or school, right? If they're working, but maybe there is a lack of kind of emotional connection or
Yeah.
sort of like uh, this really kind of emotional resilience building within their familiar relationships. And it's so interesting how that can play out in our adult relationships. And so
Yeah.
I want to hear a little
Absolutely.
bit more about that experience for you.
You're speaking to, what I was sharing a little bit about my experience, but I really do think that I hear so often that folks are like, oh, it wasn't so bad, right? Like my
Mm,
parents, they provided shelter, they, maybe gave me things, they were
hmm.
there, they showed up. And that is all great. And
Hmm.
of course, those are all things that are valuable to
Hmm.
those relationships. And what you're really speaking to is that lack of emotional attunement.
Yes, attunement.
And
Yes.
like in a consistent enough way,
Mm,
right?
hmm.
Like we're not expecting parents to be perfect by
Right.
any means and to
Right.
always get it right. But in order to, get into your adulthood
Hmm.
in a more secure way,
Hmm.
you need to have that need met in a consistent enough way.
Yeah. Okay.
And so when that doesn't happen, it could lead to you having more anxiety about relationships. It
Yeah.
could lead to you having fear about being in relationship
Yeah.
because you didn't have, relationships that were reliable.
Yeah.
And so, you're really speaking to those attachment wounds where there's those emotional injuries
Hmm.
where, the people that you're relying on most, your parents or your caregivers, your
Hmm.
primary caregivers, where they weren't reliable or they weren't consistent or they were maybe like critical or hurtful.
Yeah.
And I also hear like it's bringing up this notion that I hear a lot of folks say, but they were doing the best that they could.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I get it. Like, I believe that to an extent. And I believe that that is true
Hmm.
for our parents. And at the same time, that doesn't diminish your experience. And that doesn't
Mm.
take away from, um, the fact that they didn't get it right at sometimes. And sometimes it was actually harmful.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to hold both of those things together, right? Like we could have compassion for our parents and
Hmm.
understanding,
Hmm.
and we could also have compassion for ourselves in that space as well.
Definitely. Yeah, this has been an enlightening experience for me as the flirt coach, just seeing how many daters do have some not so great relationships with their parents, where like what you were just saying, well, they did pretty good, right? Or they did the
Mhm.
best they could, or maybe there wasn't physical harm and we had our needs met, right? We weren't hungry kind of thing. But then I hear from like a lot of women where their mom is their first and biggest hater,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
From a lot of queer
Yeah.
people, particularly gay men, where their dad is their biggest and first and biggest hater. And
Right.
so it's just so, I mean, I completely get it, right? It wasn't my personal experience, but I get it. And I'm becoming just, I get it in the sense that I'm hearing it more and more. And right, I'm having conversations like this and I'm doing my one on one calls and doing research and just like trying to figure out how those relationships we have with our parents, of course, shape and impact how we date. And I want to go back to something you have on your website where, how the different ways anxiety shows up when we're
Mhm.
dating, right? It shows up as people pleasing, it shows up as perfectionism, it shows up as over functioning or hyper independence, which
Yeah.
in our childhood can be ways that we allow ourselves to be seen, right? It may be
Yep.
the ways in which we ask for help. It may be the ways in which we seek love and validation. And as children, like we aren't necessarily aware that we're doing this. And yet we
No.
carry those habits and patterns into our adult relationships as well. So I want to hear
Right.
just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and I mean those behaviors live within you,
Hmm.
right? Those were the not only the things that got you seen and heard,
Hmm.
those were the things that helped you to survive,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
at the core, we need to be in connection to survive.
Hmm.
Without that, we would not be existing.
Hmm.
And so, when your foundation is such that that's what you needed to do in order to survive those spaces,
Hmm.
you're going to go back to that in your adulthood because that's what feels familiar to you.
Yeah.
That's what feels safe to you. That's what feels comfortable for you.
Yeah.
And so, again, like I say this all the time, but I'm going to say it probably many times here too,
Hmm.
that we need to lead with compassion for ourselves,
Hmm.
right? Like a lot of times when people recognize that they're going back into those habits or even start to notice those habits within
Hmm.
themselves, they might, talk badly about themselves or just kind of like demonize those behaviors.
Yeah.
And I think in order to get to a different place and in order to get to a different place of awareness,
Hmm.
we need to first have compassion for those are the things that you learned
Yeah.
because it was helping you to live and exist and survive.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so, like for me, when I, initially when I went out to date,
Hmm.
I was so like craving the attention that
Hmm.
I didn't get and the emotional validation. And so I swung to the opposite of my parents.
Okay.
And they were, I was very drawn to people who were very chaotic,
Mm.
like very codependent, very chaotic, lots of ups and downs. And that was giving me what I thought I needed at the time. And honestly, like it probably was in part what I had needed
Okay.
at that time in my life. Um, and at the same time, it really set this idea and this belief that that's what love was.
Mm.
That now, like that chaotic nature, the roller coaster, the
Mm-hmm.
fighting, the passion, the whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like that's what love was, because that's what I didn't get. That
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't shown that in my home.
Right.
And so I very much went on to like seek that out. And that's where, the anxiety came in, where any glimpse of that being taken away, or any glimpse of, someone having a slight shift in their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
it would completely unravel me.
Mm. Yeah, I can relate to that as well. I think the flirties could relate to that, relate to that share as well about seeking the chaos, right?
Hmm.
Which we sometimes think of as chemistry or
Yeah.
the sparks or,
Yeah.
well, I want that in my relationship. Of course I want to feel that when I'm dating. Well, yeah, but there's a difference also between the type of love that helps us lean towards that more secure attachment. It's more like calm, cool, collected kind of love versus that kind of
Yes.
love which just always makes us feel on edge, or always as if we're having to chase, or like we're always trying
Mhm.
to be validated in some way. And
Right.
so, yeah, I think this is a good transition into the main topic for the
Yeah.
episode today:
Yeah.
connection versus attachment.
Hmm.
Let's go there. We've been talking, I feel like, a lot about attachment, but what's connection, right? If we're
Yeah.
talking about attachment, what's connection?
Kind of to summarize the attachment piece,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you're coming from fear, right?
Okay. Okay.
It's coming from a place of more urgency and desperation, and as though you need the thing or the person or the relationship in order to survive, essentially. Whereas
Yes.
connection, I think of it as more intentional.
Okay.
It's, more conscious, it's calm, it's consistent, and it's mutual, right? Like you're in that space, you're both wanting to connect. If it doesn't exist, if that person weren't to be in relationship with you anymore,
Mm-hmm.
from a connection standpoint, that would not unravel you.
Okay.
So you might want it, but it's not something that you necessarily need.
Okay.
Whereas attachment, we really like tie ourselves to whatever that thing or that person or that relationship is.
Mm, okay.
I-
Interesting. Yes, attachment being more fear-based and connection
yes.
being more perhaps value-based.
Yes. And I also feel, and I'd be curious to hear if this is something that the flirties also
Mm-hmm.
share.
Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes when, breakup happens, or the person is no longer in your life, or even when it comes to jobs or different situations that you're no longer in,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my clients and people I speak to are like, well, I'll never experience that again. Like,
Yes.
I'll never have that kind of love again. I'll never have that kind of feeling again.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I feel, is coming from, that attachment of
Ah,
what that person, place, thing was representing for you,
okay.
and also what part of you it was bringing forward.
Mm,
So I think a lot of times people feel as though they're never going to experience the same type of love or whatever it is again. And wanting to people to really think about, you know, you were the other person, or, one of the other people in that relationship.
yes.
So you can recreate that again. It might not be in the same exact way, it might not be the same exact feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean that that doesn't exist within you. That version of you can't be pulled forward
Yeah.
in other contexts. And so I
Mm,
think that's like an important part of, where attachment can get really toxic and unhealthy,
yeah.
because it's the ways in which what those, again, those people, places, things are representing for us in our lives, or
Wow.
what we think it's representing.
Yeah, I want to read again this one part from your website where you say our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And I feel like this has been or was my experience dating really throughout my teens and 20s and even into my early 30s, where because I didn't fully believe in myself, right? I didn't fully love myself. It was almost easier to be in those relationships, which brought
Mhm.
out more of my insecurities, which brought out my perceived inadequacies, which brought out the fear, which brought out the anxiety, which brought out the unhealthy attachment. Because if I could stay in that space, I didn't have to change, one, and also it just validated and confirmed how I feel about myself.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, we are so much more powerful than we think.
Yeah.
And, we have everything that we need within us.
Mm,
And I always think about this,
mm,
we, if you're leaning more anxious, or even if you are avoidant,
hmm.
sometimes you put your worth into other people.
Yeah.
Um, that with that person, I'm this version,
Mm,
or I'm only likable if I'm in this relationship,
yeah.
or whatever it might be. And the truth is you are always there.
Hmm.
Like those parts of you exist no matter what.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big, big part in stepping towards security and being grounded in that, and knowing that without, relationships, without whatever it is, of course you could want those things. You
Hmm.
could want the connection, you could want the love, the relationships in
Hmm.
your life, but it's not something that you need. And,
Mm,
without those attachments, it's not as though you're going to, now somehow not survive.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think I understand what you're saying, where it's, yes, it could be still a true desire, right? A
Mhm.
want, a longing to have that romantic connection. But I think sometimes part of what I feel like I'm hearing is we sometimes sacrifice all forms of connection at the expense of having what we perceive as the ultimate form of connection,
Right.
right? That
Right.
romantic love. And I've been sharing on my socials recently that, it's tough out there being single. I'm lucky that I get to hear success stories pretty regularly now, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm in the relationship, or I've gotten to hear about engagements and
Mhm.
marriages at this point. I've been doing it that long where I get to
Yeah.
hear some of those milestones
Mhm.
happen, and it's fantastic. And so for the flirties listening that are maybe in this space of singleness where, they're having, it could be the Sunday morning, it could be the Tuesday night, it could be the Friday night, right?
Mhm.
Just like they're on their commute, they're at work, they're at school, thinking like, is it ever going to happen? Where's my person? I feel like I have this need. Yes, we can recognize that truth, but also still believe in ourselves, not give up on ourselves, have that compassion
Mhm.
for ourselves as well, and recognize that we're like we're okay. Like we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, and that you're a whole person, even if that's not what's happening in your life right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Like you don't have to um, abandon yourself
Mm.
in that process. You
Mhm.
are always a whole person, and that
Yes.
you are the person that you could come back to, right? And
Yes.
that's where it all starts. We need to
Yes.
be able to come back to ourselves and connect with ourselves in order to, step forward into other connections.
Yeah, and starting to rewrite some of those narratives where I think we've all heard that, like, relationships are, it's, we're looking for someone to complete us, right? I think about the Spice Girls song "When Two Become One."
Oh
And
my
it's
gosh,
like
love
it's
it.
it's an amazingly romantic concept,
Uh-huh.
but it's giving unhealthy attachment is what it's
Oh my
giving.
god. But I mean, like that's media, right? Like we
Yes.
grew up with Disney, we grew
Yes.
up with, the Spice Girls, these lyrics, all of
Yes.
these things.
Yeah.
And, it's telling us that we essentially, it's selling us this idea that we're not whole
Yeah.
without a relationship.
Oh my gosh. That part, Dr. O'Brien or Dr.
Yeah.
Janine, that part.
And
Yes.
that's like just, that's just bullshit.
It is. It
It's
is.
just not true at the end of the day.
Yeah. I so agree. All right. I'm going to squeeze in a couple more questions here before we transition to the next topic. And I want to give the flirties a few maybe guidelines for how a healthy attachment can look in the early dating process, because there's also, like, I love the concept of duality. And so the two truths are, right, there can be lots of manifestations of those attachment wounds and thus unhealthy attachment. But also, as we look to develop those secure attachments with ourselves and with others, attachment in and of itself isn't bad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what are some ways that attachment can look healthy in early
Yes.
dating?
Yes. And I just want to say before I answer that question, I
Mm,
think that is so important because we came and we we're born into needing attachment, right?
yeah.
Like that's what attachment theory is based on.
Mm-hmm.
Different experiences early on, as we were saying earlier,
Mm,
set the foundation for that. But
mm-hmm.
I think it's so important because I think sometimes like the word or the concept attachment gets like a bad rap.
Yeah.
And that's not entirely the case, that
Yeah.
there are healthy attachments for sure.
Yes. Yes.
So thinking about, secure attachment in the when you're dating,
Mm-hmm.
it's really coming from a place of knowing and intentionality, right?
Okay.
And groundedness.
Okay.
Right. So it one, I really encourage everyone to have a sense of their intentions going into dating.
Okay.
Whether that be that you're looking for a long term relationship, you're looking to hook up, you're looking
Mm-hmm.
for something casual,
Mm-hmm.
know your intention and lead
Okay.
with that.
Okay.
I very much encourage folks to let people know what their intentions are
Mm-hmm.
early on,
Mm-hmm.
because I see that as form of like informed consent, right? Like you're
Yeah.
choosing
I
to
get
stay
that.
in relationship with someone based on if it's a good fit in that
Mm-hmm.
way. And then also the groundedness.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're calm. It's not that sense of internal chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You're not questioning yourself. So rather than the anxiety and coming from a place of self doubt,
Mm-hmm.
you're really coming from a place of self trust when you're in a
Yes.
more secure place.
Okay.
And you're not tied to the outcome.
Mm.
So you go into dates and you can tolerate
Mm.
the a situation if it's not a good fit,
Right.
or if you're dating someone for a couple of dates, even maybe a few months, and they
Mm-hmm.
decide like, hey, it's not working out,
Yep.
it's not going to shatter
Okay.
you.
Okay.
You can ground yourself in knowing like, okay, that's disappointing,
Mm-hmm.
and I can hold space for that feeling, but it's okay.
It's
It
okay.
doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't mean anything about my worth.
Right. Because you're coming from that place of seeking connection versus attachment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, yeah, a few mindset shifts and strategies I've made talking about dating without attachment to the outcome and
Yeah.
those expectations. Like, it's so interesting. I feel like daters here, well, then that means I just shouldn't have expectations. Well, no, like, you get to have expectations. You
Mhm.
get to want the securely attached, committed, long term monogamous marriage relationship. That's
Mhm.
what I want. That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. That's my expectation, of course. But to place that expectation upon somebody else
Yes.
isn't, it's just not fair. It's not right. I mean, it's certainly
Yes.
not right away. Right.
Yes. And that's the thing. And, I know we'll talk about this a little bit more. I feel like modern dating, a lot of people go in with telling themselves, like, this needs to be it. Like, this needs to be the love of my life. And if
Yeah.
it's not,
Yeah.
I'm giving up, or, I'm not dateable, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
lovable.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have heard a number of people say that on
Yeah.
the before even going on that first date.
Absolutely.
And so really like shifting that. And I think that takes one, each individual person doing their own work.
Yes.
But I think that also calls for like a greater shift in our society and
Uh-huh.
the rhetoric around dating and the way
Mm.
that we're going about dating. I think a lot needs to change there too as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
as
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of told that that's what you should expect,
Mm-hmm.
that people are just going to, if you don't make a decision very quickly or you don't know very quickly,
Yeah.
people are just going to move on and whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, larger conversations need to be happening for sure.
Yeah. And a theme I've been playing with recently, I mean, some more strategies here are, I mean, just using, of course, like really good, clear communication, stating those intentions earlier rather than later, and being okay if that pushes someone away, right?
Yeah.
If someone starts to pull away, or maybe they're leaning towards a ghosting now, like
Uh-huh.
ultimately that's not going to be your person. And
Yeah.
so like in this settling for singleness trap, right, of like, oh, now
Right.
I'm giving up, oh, it's never going to happen, oh, it's just
Right.
like I'm just pulling myself out of the dating pool altogether. Still, like it's that balance of being hopeful but also being really intentional and being okay
Yeah.
with probably not everyone is going to be able to meet you even halfway. The reality is
Right.
most daters will not. And one of the shifts I've been making is it's so interesting, like that the point early on is not to be liked,
Yep.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my
Right,
gosh.
which is so interesting. It's a complete 180 from, I feel like, everything we were taught, everything we've been told of,
Yeah.
well, of course you want someone to like you. Well, as you get into the dating process, yeah, but early
Sure.
on, you're on an app, you're just going on those first few dates. The
Yeah.
point is not to be liked.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's to get information for yourself
Yeah.
and, see how you feel
Yes.
with that person.
Yes.
And I also say that the whole point of going on that first date is to make a decision about whether you want to go on a second date.
I
That's the
agree.
only reason why you're there.
Yeah, I know. It's if you have that marathon magical first date, and right, you were texting for weeks beforehand, or it was long distance, you were DMing, you were sending pictures, all the things that you feel like anything and everything about this person, but it's going to help you so much with your expectations, your mindset, and just this pressure we feel to like make it
Mhm.
work seemingly every
Yes.
single time, that your ego says, I want this person to like me,
Right.
but
Right.
that's just your ego.
Yes, yes. And I also say, I don't know if you agree with this or not,
Uh-huh.
but I don't love marathon first dates.
Yeah,
I like to keep it short. I like to
yeah.
tell, people keep it 30
Mhm,
minutes, an hour, grab a coffee, grab a drink,
mhm,
and be on your way.
mhm.
Because again, I really think that that whole purpose is to see, are they who they say they are,
Yeah.
and are they okay enough of person that I
Mhm.
want to see them again for a longer date,
Yeah.
and then take it from there.
Mhm.
But I see so often, I think that's happening so much more now, where
Ugh,
people are just going on
all the
dates
time,
that are essentially a whole day
all the
or
time.
longer,
Yeah, and I
maybe
think
weekends.
absolutely, yeah, it's like the dinner that turns into the movie, that turns
Yes.
into whatever, and then something else,
Yep.
and then something else, and now you're just seemingly in constant connection and communication with somebody, and I think part of what it is, and sometimes it does work out, Dr. Jane,
Sure.
sometimes,
Totally.
but I
Totally.
think more often than not, we come from the scarcity mindset of, oh, well, maybe this is the last time I'm going to see them. Right?
Yes.
Maybe I won't be able to have this feeling again with them or with anybody else, but we're having so much fun.
Mhm.
What if we don't capture this again on the second date, on the third date? What if they stop talking to me after this? What if they ghost me? What
Right.
if, what if? And so I love that you're in the moment, but I think also you might be coming from a little bit of this scarcity mindset where you're feeling the pressure to just make it work. And
Yes.
oh, what if I don't feel this again?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely, part of what's happening. I think another thing that could be happening for a lot of, my clients are they tend to be more people pleasers
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have a hard time setting those boundaries and those limits. And so
Yeah.
they can't even recognize that within themselves. And they feel, if this person is wanting to spend this time with me and they want to keep it going,
Hmm.
that feels good in some
Hmm.
way. And I also have a hard time saying, I need to go home, I need to go to sleep, or whatever
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
So I think there's, both of those things that are happening there for sure.
Absolutely. But you could end the first date, set it up with a flirt for the next one, right?
Totally.
If
Yeah.
it's meant to be, if they're
Yeah.
going to be your person, at least for a season, there's going to
Yeah.
be a second date. You don't have to worry
And
about
then
that.
that also, you know, provides more of an excitement, right? Like you have something to look
Yes.
offer to, you have, time to, process and just think about it. And so I think that there's a lot of pros to that. And,
Hmm.
again, not to say that those marathon dates don't work out for some
Right.
people, because
Hmm.
of course they do,
Hmm.
but I do think that that is not necessarily the norm.
There are always exceptions, but the hard
Absolutely.
part is more often than not, we're probably not the exception. we want to be. I'm
Yes.
not saying we're, I mean, of course, we're all exceptional people. All the flirties are exceptional,
Absolutely.
but when it comes to our dating
Absolutely.
lives, the exceptions are more often than
Yes.
not, right? Not the rule.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I think there's a great transition into love bombing, Dr. Janine.
Mhm.
Let's get into it with this question that came through quite a few times. How do we know if someone is love bombing me versus are they genuinely interested? Are they about that connection or the attachment?
I feel like love bombing is one of those terms that I hear quite frequently kind of thrown around and
Oh yeah,
misused.
yeah.
So that's just interesting. I think it's in the pop psychology world.
Hmm.
But love bombing is actually a manipulation strategy,
Yes.
and with the aim of controlling the other person, and
Mm.
with the aim of making them dependent on their attention and their affection.
Ooh, okay.
And so it can look like someone being overly complimentary, overly expressive of their emotions very, very early on. And that's the key point. It's very early on.
Yeah.
It could be a push for premature commitment. Initially, you're put up on a pedestal,
Hmm.
right, as the person that is getting love bombed. And then very quickly, that shifts to you being devalued, and that happens also very quickly. And so it doesn't really give you a chance to really process what's happening.
Yeah.
So you get caught up in that feeling of a lot of parts of that might feel good.
Yeah.
And it is leaving you, not being able to really understand what's happening. And before it's too late, you're already, maybe they've gained a sense of control over you at
Mm.
that point.
Okay.
Versus excitement or genuine excitement in the first stages of dating, that looks more consistent, right?
Okay.
Like it looks more consistent. It's mutual, it's respectful, it's it doesn't feel as pressured, and it's not happening in the same time frame as love
Okay.
bombing.
Okay.
Love bombing really is, within the first week,
Okay.
or, very, very quickly,
Okay.
all of these things are happening.
Mm.
And I think another part about love bombing that's important to note is the way that you feel.
Hmm.
You might feel that sense of pressure where, you might not want to be meeting this person's family or moving in with them, or, saying I love you at
Yeah.
these early points. But there is this sense of pressure to do so
Yeah.
in order to remain in their good graces, and in order to continue to get that attention and, affection.
Yeah.
And the person will start to de-pedestal them, very quickly as well, especially when that person starts to set boundaries or express themselves or express their discomfort about the
Mm.
situation.
Okay. Okay. That's really helpful. And we're going to come back to a word, like a key word I feel with regard to love bombing is dependence. But first, want to talk for a moment about genuine interest. I love that we open the conversation talking about connection versus attachment, some of the ways, right, unhealthy attachment or those attachment wounds might present themselves early in
Mhm.
dating versus how we can focus on more connection, giving the flirty some strategies there. And it goes both ways as well. Like if someone is genuinely interested in you, like ultimately we get to have our expectations, and as we date and as we gather like I say, dating is
Yeah.
dating, as we
Hmm.
gather that information,
Yes.
having those conversations, right, someone that is genuinely interested, it stands to reason, of course they're going to be consistent, There's
Yes.
at least going to be a flow of communication when you establish a boundary or express a need, a want, a desire, right? That, hey, even like or even it could be as something as simple as like a vulnerable share of, I'm really enjoying spending time with you.
Mhm.
That's going to be met with understanding and compassion and
Right.
empathy. So someone that's genuinely interested is going to have at least some baseline level of emotional maturity and availability present
Yes.
in the
Yes.
connection versus someone that's love bombing. It's that keyword of dependence.
Yes.
They are looking to have you be emotionally dependent on
Yeah.
them very, very quickly, and somewhat vice versa, right?
Mhm.
there's this urgency, there's this pressure, there's this
Yes.
rush. Everything's happening so quickly. It's like they're giving you pet names before you even meet, right? They're saying I
Mhm.
love you so fast. You might even be talking about moving in together. They may want you to quit your job or
Yeah.
stop going to school. Like they're looking to bring you into their world
Yes.
very, very quickly. And at the
Yes.
same time, somewhat isolate you from your
Yes.
own external world so that that dependence on them
Yes.
increases.
Yeah.
And the the part that really just unnerves me is that, the love bomber isn't necessarily a narcissist. I don't think
Mhm.
that's true all of the time. However,
Mhm.
a true love bomber is going to find people that don't have high amounts of self-esteem, right? That don't have a lot of self-worth, right? Like
Yes.
you're not going to love bomb me at this
Mhm.
current stage and age that
Mhm.
I'm in. It's just not going to work. The love bomber ain't going to come for Benjamin the flirt coach.
Right.
But earlier in my life, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
I know.
It happened to me. The experience that I had with it was after I had gotten divorced,
Mm,
and it was the first person that I dated after that. And I had been out of the dating world for 10 years at that point, so I
yeah.
didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And it happened very quickly, probably within the span of maybe 3 weeks. And
Yeah.
he was taking me on extravagant dates and introducing me to his family and
Mm-hmm.
friends, and making plans months down the
Mm-hmm.
road. And
Yeah.
looking back, also a big part of love bombing is they don't want to get to know you, right? Like
Mm,
versus the genuine excitement,
yeah.
where they're going to want to get to know you better. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
be asking questions about you,
Mm-hmm.
which, whereas with the love bombing, their goal is to just gain that control and dependence.
Yeah.
So it's looking back on my situation, I was like, he didn't know anything about me, and
Mm-hmm.
he's making all of these plans,
Right.
and it's very confusing,
Yeah.
and being the person on the other end of it.
Mm-hmm.
um and so yeah, there's a lot of components to it, and it isn't just when you're really excited about someone. There
Right.
are real harmful parts about love bombing,
Definitely.
for sure.
Definitely. And there's some there's there is going to be a little bit of nuance to this at times, right? Like I got some questions here about, well, if someone is, maybe dropping you lunch off at work, or they're offering you a lot of compliments early on, or it seems like
Mhm.
they're being overly nice, like does that necessarily qualify as love bombing? Not all the time. I think it depends on the person, because
Yeah.
someone could be very excited about you and genuinely like
Yeah.
you and maybe
Yeah.
have perhaps more of that anxious attachment, and that
Yeah.
looks more
Yeah.
like love bombing because they want to text you all the time, right? They're just
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, I like you so much. They want to spend all their time with you, but they're
Yeah.
not exactly trying to have you be dependent on them.
Right. Right. And I think a good distinction there is when, it could be someone who is more anxious,
Mm,
or it could be more of, like a hyper fixation situation.
yeah.
But I think the distinction is that you can talk about that, right? Like you
Yes.
could name that, what's going on, what you're feeling.
Yes.
And the person who is anxious, or it's more of a hyperfixation, they're going to be able to have that conversation with you.
Yeah.
It's not going to throw them off their game. It's not going to lead to, in the case of love bombing, they might now, want to control you harder, go
Mm,
into some of these other strategies, or they might end up ghosting because you're trying to set a boundary or have a conversation.
exactly. You get that extreme, like, kind of pull away, or there's some element of emotional manipulation there. There might now not be gaslighting, not seeking to understand, but seeking
Right.
to control.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. We're going to go a little bit further
Mhm.
as we do start to conclude the conversation. I teased a couple more topics coming. And I want to go back to something you were talking about earlier in the conversation, this pendulum swing,
Mhm.
right? Where in the early part of your dating life, you presented more anxious. And
Mhm.
then in the latter, or like, kind of after that first relationship, now
Mhm.
becoming perhaps more classically avoidant or more
Yes.
hyper independent.
Yep.
And I got some questions here. And let's frame it around this one where this flirty says, they're starting to date someone. And when someone pulls away, I get insecure and abandon myself.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
what do you have to say for that flirty?
Yeah, I'd be curious to know more about what that looks like,
Yeah.
and how they define, abandoning themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that's a point of, you know, getting curious
Okay.
with yourself. And I think that this is a good place to start
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of contexts of, okay, you're starting to notice that.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? How do you typically respond when you're starting to abandon yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What does it bring up for you
Okay.
when, the other person is pulling away? Because it sounds like that's attached to some, core wound.
Yeah.
And, it might be that their response to that core wounding, maybe it's that for a lot of anxious folks, that could be, I'm not good enough.
Mm,
And so when that thought or that wounding starts to come up, people typically then have a default response to that. And
okay.
that might look like that abandoning.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's getting curious. It's being able to, challenge,
Mm,
what's happening and make the conscious decision to do something different.
okay.
So, I think everything starts with that awareness because that opens up the opportunity that you can make the decision to do something differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that is easier said than done, for sure. Like it's very easy for me to say, like, just go out and do the opposite thing,
Mm-hmm.
but start small. So if you know that when someone starts to pull away,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to start abandoning yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Try to do something different in that space.
Okay.
Maybe it's pouring into yourself, connecting with yourself in a different way.
Mm,
Maybe it's, spending time with people who you care about, or doing something nice for yourself, taking yourself out on a date
yeah.
so that you can fill that space that is left when the other person is pulling away,
Mm,
rather than now feeling as though you need to rely on that person to fill that space for you.
mm. That's great. A two for Dr. Janine. You didn't even know it, as we also got questions about how to deepen the connection with yourself. Uh,
Mm,
you answered that one at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah. So I'll also add to that, like deepening the connection with yourself. I love, taking yourself out on dates. I think that's important,
Yes.
like at any stage, even if you are in partnership. Um, and the other part is being able to connect with yourself in a way that is going to build up your self trust.
Mm-hmm.
And again, for like a lot of folks who are more anxious in dating or just more generally, they tend to lack that self trust because they're so reliant on everyone else for that external validation.
Yeah.
And so, again, start small
Okay.
there. It could be that you tend to put on an outfit for the first date, and
Mm-hmm.
you have the tendency to change outfits a million times
Mm-hmm.
because you're thinking about what the other person is going to be thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I encourage that person to instead choose an outfit you feel good in,
Yeah.
stick with that decision, move through that decision, because that's where you're going to build that connection and that trust with yourself.
Sticking with
It's a
it.
muscle, right?
Yeah,
Like just as you would go to the gym and exercise a particular
absolutely.
muscle, you have to stretch that trust muscle.
It's all a practice.
It all is a practice, and I know you know
Yes.
that as a yogi
Uh,
and as a coach.
I do. I do know that intimately. How did you develop self-awareness around your own dating patterns? Because like part of where I wanted to go with this question was several flirties wrote in that are submitted questions that, they get into relationships and then they maybe become re-triggered. Those attachment wounds come back up, or they
Mhm.
start, wait, I thought I let go of that habit or pattern or that mindset, and now it's coming back up. And so,
Yeah,
just speaking to the self-awareness piece, I think we've talked about the compassion and connection with the self piece,
yeah.
but just how we can maybe develop a little bit more self-awareness around our patterns.
Yeah, so I think that's, in part it's experience, right?
Okay.
Because we form our attachment styles in relationship, we heal in relationships, and
Yeah.
our relationships are also the place where we are meant to be triggered.
Okay.
So we are going to be triggered in our different relationships. So one, it takes those experiences and letting yourself move through those experiences in different ways. And then for me, I think it's just doing that internal work,
Okay.
separate from partnership. It's doing that internal work to build up that self trust,
Mm,
to recognize when something doesn't feel good, to challenge myself where I, in my past self, might have just continued to say nothing, but really knowing that that wasn't serving me,
mm-hmm.
and intentionally choosing to say something if something doesn't feel good or something doesn't feel comfortable for me
Mm-hmm. Okay.
currently. Um, and also, I'm with someone now who is more secure
Mm-hmm.
again. Like it's not a perfect situation by any means,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a secure base that I can challenge myself to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I'm going to be met, in ways that I need to be met.
Yes. Okay. That's a perfect transition into the last question for our conversation. I wanted to end on accountability, because
Mhm.
I think that's definitely a part of this connection versus attachment conversation. And it seems like there's this big trend on social media recently where we feel like we not necessarily want to teach people a lesson, but almost like it's our responsibility to hold them accountable,
Mhm.
right? Like it's our responsibility to yes, but even beyond hold them accountable, like let someone know like how much they hurt us, which could be, yes, as we're talking about communication, expressing needs and intentions
Yeah.
and all that good stuff. But I want to end here talking about accountability and where's that balance in perhaps expressing ourselves and feeling like we we need to teach people a lesson, so to speak.
What like immediately comes to mind
Mm,
is the thought that we're not responsible for other people's feelings.
yeah.
And I think that is the case here too. It's not our job to be out there teaching people.
Yes.
So when it comes to being able to express yourself, I think I do actually encourage that. Like what I'm thinking about is in the case of like, ghosting.
Mm,
I do think that there is a place and a reason to share that it was something that was experienced as hurtful,
hmm.
um, for you,
Yeah.
though.
Yes.
Right? Like it's not to teach someone a lesson. It's not to get them to change, because you can't do that.
Right.
You can't make anyone change if they're not willing or at a place where they're able to do so.
Hmm.
And I think we need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
I think we need to say what we need to say if that's something that you feel you need to do,
Hmm.
and then be okay with the fact that they might take it or leave it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's where they're at, and we need to respect that.
Yeah.
It's not our responsibility to be, even in the role of, coach and therapist, it's
Hmm.
not my responsibility to
Hmm.
do things differently for someone or to change someone.
Right.
They have to be having that motivation
Hmm.
come from within themselves for sure.
Yeah, coming full circle, perhaps connection versus attachment. Like, are we coming from this place of seeking connection, deeper understanding, or are we maybe reacting out of fear or anxiety or insecurity as if we have to prove something to somebody else, as if we
Yeah.
need to, like, sort of just, want them to change so badly. If I could just let them know, like, how much they
Yeah.
hurt me or how much, yeah, like, whatever's coming up for you, that maybe they would change, they would show up
Right.
differently, they would yeah, they would be our
Yeah.
person or something, but letting go of
Hmm.
that fantasy, the potential a little bit. And so I
Yeah.
really wanted to end the conversation today talking about accountability a little, somewhat, because it's definitely, I feel like, trending more and more in the dating
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get it, right? Like, I get that. I think it is important to be able to communicate and
Hmm.
express yourself.
Hmm.
And I think we are moving towards, opening space for that.
Yeah.
But again, it's letting people be where they're at.
Mm. That's, I think, a good place to finish the conversation. Dr.
Yeah.
Janine O'Brien, this has been wonderful. The only thing I'm going to ask is where you live on the internet. I'd love to send the flirties your way, to your socials, to your website, if you're accepting
Yeah.
new clients. Any offers you got? Yeah, share anything with the
So
flirties.
yeah, so my website is drjanineobrien.com,
Okay.
and I spend most of my time on Instagram. That's where you can find me the most. I'm at the.magnetic.psychologist,
Yes.
and I see clients in both New York and Florida, and
Okay.
I'm currently accepting a few new clients. So
All
yeah, definitely
right.
shout me out if that's something that you're interested in learning more about.
And you would need to be in New York or Florida for that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. New York and Florida flirties. Dr. Janine is there for you, and the socials there for everybody. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so, so much for being on Flirtations today.
Thank you so much.